Hey guys, how's everybody doing today? Thanks a lot for visiting Jig Health TV. My name is Jig, and I appreciate you visiting. I hope you find value in the information that I'm sharing. As you may know or may not know, but I've decided to go on a 30-day water fast in the attempt to correct myself from different ailments that I've suffered with over the years. Just to give you a little backstory, when I was 36 years old, I had to have a stent put into one of my arteries because I was extremely overweight and I suffer from coronary artery disease. And that's basically when your veins and arteries start to clog with plaque. And one of my arteries, unfortunately, was clogged. And I had a heart attack, I guess you would call it. And I had to be rushed to the hospital for them to open up one of my arteries and put this balloon/stent to open the artery up to allow the blood to flow. Not fully understanding everything that I was going through, but I did make some changes in my life at that time and been on this roller coaster ride from losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, and was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Started to develop edema, pitted edema. That's basically when your ankles start to swell and your shins, and you can stick your finger in your shin and it leaves an indentation. And that's a pre-marker for congestive heart failure. So as I've aged, I've become more and more serious about my health and well-being because my cholesterol was elevated, my blood pressure was elevated. I had the congestive heart failure pending, basically. I had the type 2 diabetes and struggling with obesity. And it wasn't until the coronavirus hit that I fully dived and started looking further into the health benefits of fasting once I was introduced to the concept. Watching a Joe Rogan show one day, and he had Dr. Rhonda on his show, and she covered so much information that it made me look further into the body, the physiology of the body, the biological and hormonal changes that occur within our bodies. And as I researched more and more, looking at the New England Journal of Medicine and their research findings and following Dr. Fung, he's a nephrologist, and looking at other doctors and just paying attention to the new data, I decided to embark on this intermittent fasting journey. And with great results, because intermittent fasting is definitely the way that all of us, especially those of us that are overweight, should transition into a food diet regimen. Like I mentioned in previous videos, most people fast from dinner to breakfast. So society has trained us over the years, the last several decades, that we need to eat meals every 3 hours or 4 hours with the intent of keeping our metabolism going. Unfortunately, that information was misleading. It was decided upon based on inadequate research. And because of the improvements in science and medicine, we know more today in the last 10 years than we ever did in the last 100 years. So under the new guidelines and a new understanding, and if you follow the research, and again, I am not a doctor, I just did a lot of research, and I believe it to be true based on my personal experiences and based on the case studies that I've witnessed via, looking online. And my job here is to try and help as many people as possible to potentially cure themselves of different ailments that they may be dealing with. But like I said, we normally fast from dinner time to breakfast, and that can run on that range of 10 hours to 12 hours between that meal. And the body is in a fasted state during that nighttime window when we're asleep and such, and is digesting everything that we've eaten at dinner the day before. And then when breakfast comes around, we wind up loading up on more foods, particularly more carbs, more sugars. Based on the Food and Drug Administration, a bowl of oatmeal, some whole wheat toast, and orange juice is supposed to be the best way to start your day. However, when you look at the macronutrients, remember macronutrients are fat, proteins, and carbohydrates. Those are the three types of foods that the body will handle with different hormonal responses. And looking at that oatmeal breakfast combo, it's all carbohydrate. It's all sugar. So for those of us that are suffering with weight, for example, our body is not processing the carbohydrates like an athlete would, or a slimmer person with a higher metabolism would. You and I could eat the same meal as an athlete, and the athlete will process the entire meal. However, people in our condition, we might only process 20% of it, 30% of it, and then the remaining 60, 70, 80% will be stored for food energy for us to access in the future. But because we're constantly eating, and when you constantly eat, we're constantly stimulating our insulin. And when you constantly stimulate your insulin, we're constantly storing fat. Hence the reason why we constantly keep gaining weight. And if you suffer from type 2 diabetes like I did, the insulin medicine that they give us elevates the insulin to help get the sugar, sugars out of the bloodstream. And being that we're helping to get the sugars out of the bloodstream, it's forcing the sugars into different cells, into the organs. And over time, those organs will start to fail. It could be your eyes, your kidneys, your pancreas, you name it. For example, a lot of people that are on a larger scale suffer from what you call fatty liver disease. And fatty liver disease is when the fat is sticking to the liver. And the liver is not intended to have fat on it. So fatty liver disease can also lead into other complications down the road. So one of the main and immediate benefits of fasting is to clean the liver from that fat. So when you do fast, the first organ that benefits is the liver. So if you fast on a regular basis, you can cure yourself from fatty liver disease. It's something that's easy to fix. And I'm going to provide some information here that supports that as well. But we have to pay attention to how we eat. And just like when you exercise, there's a development of the muscle. And the more you exercise, then the easier it is for that muscle to develop. Same thing with fasting. Think of it like martial arts. There's a white belt, and yellow belt, and orange belt. There's all the belts until you become a black belt. So when you fast at different intervals, and if you watch my last video, I talk about the different benefits from fasting. So you know what happens at various hours since your last meal. From the first hour after your last meal, to the 13th hour, to the 15th hour, and so on. And that's the same way I'm approaching my health and my fasting windows. I look at it as belt development. Like I'm going from a white belt to a yellow belt to an orange belt, working my way to a black belt. Currently, I'm a black belt now because I started with the intermittent fasting regimen. You know, doing 13 hours, then graduating to 16 hours. Then I graduated to 18 hours, then 20 hours, then 24 hours, and so on, 36, 48, and 72. And the deeper we can get into that fast, the better we are at fasting, and the more health and the deeper recovery we experience. So as we recover, there's more healing taking place the longer we can go in fasting. And I'm going to provide some information that Dr. Berg put up, and I thought it was brilliant because he also put together this timeline of what to expect at different hourly intervals. So I'm going to put his link in his channel at the end of the video, and if you stay to the end, I'm going to post my current weight condition, how much weight I've lost since the beginning of January 1st. And it was all fat, some water that I lost. I also cleaned out my intestines. So I have all that decayed fecal matter that was sitting there It's all been removed, because you know the average person walks around with 5 pounds to 25 pounds of fecal matter. And as that feces is sitting inside our intestines, there's a whole lot of gases, there's a whole lot of toxins that are building up within our body, and it's creating havoc, causing havoc on the body. So it's super important that we try and implement some sort of fasting window. And being that Americans, we don't really exercise like we should. In my journey, I'm also doing an exercise program where I'm doing 100 push-ups a day. There's no excuse why we can't do some type of exercise. So some people go to the gym, but with the coronavirus and everything, it's kind of difficult, depending on where you live especially, to get to the gym. So I'm doing a push-up challenge where I do 100 push-ups a day. And as my body is strengthening and getting stronger, next month I'll be doing 200 push-ups a day, and then 300 push-ups a day, and working my way up to 1,000 push-ups a day, with a few days every month to rest. So I try to give myself one day every 10 days, sometimes 2 days, but one day every 10 days or so, just to give my body an opportunity to recover. But take a look at this chart that Dr. Berg put up, and it lets you know what areas we are in where our body can heal and develop. So I hope you appreciate this content. Here's a couple of parts where I'm doing my push-ups over the last several days. This is from day 7 to day 10. So you can see I'm getting my exercise in. But please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, any comments, leave them down below, and I'll be sure to answer your question. And in addition to that, I'm drinking water. I drink about 1 gallon of water every day, sometimes 1.5 gallons. You do want to, if you're going to go on a prolonged fast, just to prevent yourself from having a refeed syndrome, if you're doing a fast greater than 5 days, then you definitely want to make sure you're putting sodium in your water. You want to make sure you're taking phosphate. You want to take thiamine. You want to take your potassium, your magnesium. Also calcium and zinc is a good idea with D3. All these things support the immune system, and it keeps your electrolytes in order, and it also keeps your pH levels balanced in your body, because you don't want to go into ketoacidosis. And then when you break your fast, if you're doing a 5-day or longer fast, you want to make sure you don't suffer from what they call refeed syndrome. So your first meal after you break your fast, you want it to be a protein type meal, low in carbohydrates, because you do not want to get a spike in your insulin all of a sudden after putting your stomach to sleep and your digestive enzymes to sleep. You don't want to just automatically open it up with the high carbohydrate diet and spike your insulin too high, because you could run into complications. But again, I'm not a doctor, but this is what my research has discovered, that I found through research. And I want to make sure for those of you that are interested in healing your body and curing yourself of type 2 diabetes, curing yourself of fatty liver disease, getting your blood pressure in order, getting the inflammation out of your body is so important, because inflammation is what kills us. And when we're fat, the entire body is inflamed. So the goal is to get that inflammation down as fast as you humanly can. And again, I'm 50 years old, and a lot of people say I look good for 50, so I always appreciate a good compliment. I'm trying my best to live as long as possible. And from fasting, the less we eat, the longer we can expect to live. And who doesn't want to live as long as possible and as healthy as possible? So with that, here's some push-ups that I've done just to stay exercised. And lastly, I appreciate you guys checking out my channel, and I hope you're enjoying the content. And if you have any comments, once more, feel free to leave them down below. But again, this is Jig. Thank you for watching Jig Health TV, and I'll catch you in the next video.
Refinancing with Splash. Save me a lot of money. There were no application fees or any weird hidden fees. Now that I refinance with Splash, maybe I'll finish paying off my student loans sooner than later. I feel better about my student loans. Visit splashfinancial.com today. DealDash.com, the fair and coolest spinning site, an iPad Air for less than $24, a PlayStation for less than $16, and a 4K television for less than $2. Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you can save. Remember, shipping is always free.
Let's get set one of these push-ups in. Next set.
Then they have guys go look up. I know she was a teenager. So 18 is a teenager. So,
Last one.
I guess I could come to you tomorrow. Since you came over here today. 1 o'clock? No. Yeah, what time tomorrow?
Because you cleared 1 o'clock after 5.
No, you
You got so it's good one?
What? Okay.
You want to do 2 and you can put together some videos.
Gotta get that work in, guys.